Okay, so now the next step, as I showed you previously, you still have to divide it by n, right? And then you need to have a square root. So basically, once you have this code, right? So this is like a for loop, right? When the for loop is done, right? So you have to find, let's say, then what? Then you have a sum, right? So basically, what you have to do is what you have to buy after the for loop. You have to find the sigma, which is a standard deviation, right? You have to have a square root and then divided by n. By the way, in Python, right, there's a built-in function for the square root. You can use a square root, by the way. It's sqrt, the square root, right? Square root sqrt. And to use the square root function, you have to import a math library. So assuming that you import a math library, what you can do is standard deviation is math. This is like a math dot. This is like standard the library, the math, and then square root, right? sqrt, right? And then you have to have what? Square root, and then the sum divided by what? The length of the score. N means, you know that n is the length of score, right? So length, sorry. So the standard deviation is what? Math. This is the standard library name. And then we are going to use the square root functions. And then we have a sum from the previous, right? And then what? We have to divide it by n. Divided by n. This is a square root, right? So the n means what? The length of the score, right? So length score. Okay. So and then your function later returns standard deviation. So let's just implement these functions, right? Using the Python. So first, I have to define the standard deviation. I have to define the standard deviation function, right? So let's copy this. First, let's uncomment this line. And then standard deviation, right? Copy, paste, and then define definitions and make sure that you put colon, right? So I'm going to basically implement this one. So I have score and average. So first I'm going to use a for loop. Oh, first what? My sum is a 0, right? And then what? For loop for I in range. Length of what? Score. And then a difference is what? The score I minus average. The average is from the argument. So the main is supposed to what? Pass the value for the average, right, as argument. And this is a parameter, right? Parameter gets that argument value and they use it here, right, in the body, in the function body. And then what? Sum is equal to sum plus diff, and this is what? Square, right? I'm not done yet because I have to divide it by n and then use the square root function. So standard deviation, standard deviation is, by the way, if you want to, you can put the standard deviation is equal to 0. I think this is good for the readability. So basically tell that I'm going to use a standard deviation variable. So first I'm going to initialize as 0, Now my standard deviation is math dot math what dot square root and the sum divided by what, length of score, right? Right. And then I'm going to what? I'm going to return standard deviation. Okay? But if I run this first, my standard deviation, in order to print the result, I'm going to uncomment this, right? Okay, so if I just run this, they said what? I have an error message. Why? Because in the main, they said math is not defined, right? The reason is Python complains that, hey, I don't know nothing about the math. So what we have to do is we have to input this math, the library. So up there, right, I will say import, the first line I'll say import math. Okay, import math. Then the Python will recognize this math variable, as a library, as a math library. So when I just run this module one more time, yes, so it works, right? The standard deviation is this. Okay, so this is, I just show you how to how to implement standard deviation function, find standard deviation using loop. So as you can see, you learn two things, right? You know how to use the for loop to implement this this part, the sigma part, summation part, right? And then you use the square root functions that is already defined in the math library. And in order for you to use this square root functions, you must what? You must import math library. Okay, so let me stop my lecture.